All right, this week we are treating Sophocles. This is our first week of plays, and we are reading Antigone in this week and this week only. And once you've completed it, you will move on to Death of the Salesman. Antigone starts at the beginning of our book, Seagull Book of Plays. Page 3, you get some background on Sophocles, and the cast of characters is on page 4. And then the speech begins on page 5. I don't know how much experience you might have reading plays, but you will note the pattern. The way that plays are written is, generally speaking, they are almost entirely speech, and certainly Antigone from Sophocles is only going to be speech. This is an ancient play. It was written, when was it written? 2,000 years ago. Okay, so you see that the first line on page 5 says Antigone in all caps, and then there is a colon and then a space, and then Ismene, my dear sister, whose father was my father. That is speech spoken by the character Antigone, and when she finishes speaking along about line 12-13, then it says Ismene in all caps and colon, not a word Antigone of those we love. So plays are always written this way, by the way. They are written with the speaker's name somehow bolded or in all caps, typically followed by a colon, and then all the verbiage that comes after that is spoken by that single character. Okay, so that's how you read plays. And we have here for you a video that I offer you talking about Sophocles, and I have a definition of a term that I want you to use this week, sticomythia, and if we pop that open, it should be a short definition of the term sticomythia from the Encyclopedia Britannica. It tells you sticomythia is dialogue in alternate lines, a form sometimes used in classical Greek drama in which two characters alternate speaking single epigrammatic lines of verse. So this is the clue. You'll find sticomythia when you have one character giving one line followed by another character giving another line, and it's usually two characters going back and forth. This device, which is found in such plays as Agamemnon and Oedipus Rex, is often used as a means to show characters in vigorous contention or to heighten the emotional intensity of a scene. Characters may take turns voicing antithetical positions. We also know that as arguing. Or they may take up one another's words, suggesting other meanings or punning upon them. Okay, so definition of sticomythia for you. And then the next external link that you have goes to this lovely site called Languages of Virus, Poetry Kaleidoscope, a guide to poetry. And you have another definition of sticomythia. It's a bit more developed, and there's a little bit more information about it, so that's very nice. It's a technique in drama or poetry in which alternating lines or half-lines are given to alternating characters, voices, or entities. Originates in ancient Greece, is particularly well suited to sections of dramatic dialogue where two characters are in a violent dispute. The rhythmic intensity of the alternating lines combined with the quick biting ripostes in the dialogue can be quite powerful. Okay, so it's a lovely little technique that Sophocles uses quite a lot, and so I want you to know it. After those two, another video for you where I go on a bit about sticomythia and dramatic tension and talk about the play a little bit more. And then you have two assignments this week, on Wednesday homework 10 and on Friday journal 9. So let's look at homework 10 over here. Here we go. The assignment for the reading is, in the introduction, please read Roman numerals XXV, 25 to 32 in Roman numerals. And in addition to that, read Antigone, pages 3 to 45. It's a very small play. You can knock it right out, and it's really straightforward. Sophocles was extremely clear about what he wanted people to think, and even this many thousand years later, it communicates very nicely. So I think you will enjoy it. Terms from the introduction that you should be able to apply to the Greek trauma include tragedy, prosperity, reversal, recognition, tragic hero, pity, hubris, terror, catharsis. That's a really good one. Greek theater and orchestra. They are orchestra, definitely not what you think it is. So read those pages and become informed. Characters you should be able to talk about from Antigone. Antigone, Ismene, Creon, Haemon, Tiresias, Eurydice, The Century, and Messengers 1 and 2. Okay, so the play is called Antigone, and that very often suggests to students that Antigone is the protagonist. Antigone is really not the protagonist. Spoiler alert, she dies in the middle of the play, so really not the protagonist. Okay, but she certainly does incite the conflict. Well, maybe she's the protagonist, but the hero is Creon, because everything that's taking place is taking place because of him, because of what he decides, because of what he does. We may like it, we may not like it. Modern readers usually don't like what he is saying. But he's the one who is experiencing the tragedy to the full extent. Okay. So here's your homework in a couple of paragraphs. Answer the questions below. Be sure to use the key terms highlighted and other relevant bolded terms from, oops, not from stories from plays. Better fix that. Okay, so first paragraph. Stichomythia between Antigone and Ismene, taking place on pages 7 and 8. This is lines 90 to 108. So study that closely, examine it for stichomythia, and think about what the stichomythia is doing there. Discuss how stichomythia works to set two views about a woman's role in opposition. How the characters are used to embody these opposing views, right? In some sense, when the characters take on a very, very powerful viewpoint, it is kind of sort of bigger than themselves. It is a social issue, really, more than it is simply something belonging to a character. So you want to think about it that way, because again, I think I mentioned, but I will mention in the future, Greek plays were intended, the Athenian plays were intended to play out ideas about democracy and what people ought to be doing. So the characters take on some kind of very broad, general standpoint. They kind of become personifications of a view. Okay. And also consider, how does stichomythia cause a rise in tension for the audience? Okay, so these are things for you to contemplate for a little bit. And then a second paragraph, we have stichomythia between the characters Creon and Haemon. Creon is the king, Creon is also a father. Haemon is a prince, and Haemon is Creon's son. And this exchange takes place between pages 26 and 27, lines 781 to 818. You are to discuss how stichomythia works to set two views about governance and leadership, kind of either or, you can pick one. Remember, as you will see in my future videos, Sophocles was a supporter of Pericles, and Pericles was a major force in the movement toward democracy, was highly critical of autocratic leadership. And so Sophocles' plays very often relate a leader who is arrogant and thinks that he is smarter than everybody else, and won't listen. And the people become a little bit confused and frightened and critical when the things that their leader says don't make sense to them. Anyway, so think about the things that Creon is saying, the things that Haemon is saying to Creon. What do those two viewpoints have to do with good leadership? Okay. So they're setting two views about government and leadership in opposition, and how the characters are used again to embody these views, because again their characteristics are not simply belonging to a particular person, they are bigger ideas about what leadership is good, what leadership is bad, and also how that exchange, that stichomythia line by line, how it causes a rise in tension for the audience. Okay, so that's the homework for you to work on. And now let's look at the journal. Review and take notes on 25 to 32, so it's the same reading in plays. Review the tragedy terms in bold in the pages above. To the best of your ability, in 200 plus words, explain how well Creon's character matches with the tragic hero. What about Creon is a tragic hero, as defined in your play's textbook? How does Creon have prosperity in the beginning? That's one of the terms. He's a king, so there's a big clue. At what point does Creon experience a reversal of fortunes? How does he suffer? What does he lose? How does he become not prosperous? And does that happen at the same time that he has a recognition, or maybe it happens before, or maybe it happens after? But he has a recognition, and he has a need to take responsibility. When does that happen? So talk about that. And in that moment that he recognizes and takes responsibility, would you say that his character becomes pitiable by the audience? Does the audience experience pity for Creon? Okay. At what moment in the play does the audience experience terror, as defined by Aristotle, right? In Aristotle's terms, when does the audience feel terror? Okay. When and how does the catharsis happen? Okay, so all the terms that we have about Greek tragedy, they come from Aristotle. And Aristotle's perfect play, if you like, was Oedipus Rex, written by Sophocles, and it is the play that in sequence comes before Antigone. And when Aristotle is talking about what a tragedy is supposed to do, he uses the Oedipus Rex to talk about it. And these are his terms. Catharsis is his term. And this is explained in more detail in a future video. Anyway, so I hope you enjoy Greek tragedy, and have a great week.